What are you thankful for today on day 16 of 30 days of thanks? For me, it's fitness. And what would be the one question we'd want to ask ourselves if we wanted to be more fit? In the early 1950s, my father Roger and my uncle Larry worked together as partners for a freight delivery company. And what they would do is they'd deliver the freight at night and then drop it off throughout the state of New Hampshire, going from stop to stop. And one night, about 4 o'clock in the morning, just as they were getting ready to come off shift, when they got to one of their deliveries, there was a early 1950s Cadillac parked in the dock in front of the bay, the very bay that they had to drop off the freight. These men were extremely fit and extremely strong. And Larry and Roger said, we're going to move this. Larry got on one end, Roger on the other. And as Larry picked up his end, Roger would push down in the other. One bumper on both ends of the car. Up and down like a seesaw. And gradually, with more momentum and all their massive strength, they were able to get the car bouncing to where the tires were bouncing off the ground. And very gradually, inch by inch, stopping and then starting again, inch by inch, they were able to completely move the Cadillac out of the way, back up the trailer, and unload the freight. Two men who had devoted their lives to staying fit. Well, I want to thank all of you who have been with me for the first 15 days of thanks, 30 days of thanks. We've had a chance to get very serious during the first 15 days, and it's been absolutely wonderful. And of course, I've asked you each day, what are you thankful for? What are you thankful for? Well, let me tell you, I am thankful for fitness. I love fitness, and there's so many ways that we can be fit. We can be fit mentally by playing games, chess, reading, meditation, emotional strength, through prayer, and through stability, and through fortitude, and through practicing virtue. And then there's physical strength, where we can stay strong, fast, healthy. So, what is the first question you can ask yourself if you want to be fit, if you want to stay fit? I believe it's this. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, a great book, one which I highly recommend, talks about identity. And if you want to form a habit, you want to have the identity of what you are. And I've applied that all my life to fitness. I've never thought of the self as going towards a contest and I have to win this contest, or I have to place first, or I have to win this race. I've always approached fitness as I am fit. I am a fit person. I am all about fitness. I am strong. I am fast. It's about identity. And I would ask you today to take a look at that question and see if that doesn't make getting fit hundreds of times more easy and staying fit very, very easy. Now, it certainly is true that fitness is a multifaceted experiment. To stay fit, we have to pay attention to what we eat. We have to exercise. We have to keep the right attitude. But it all begins with knowing that we are fit and that that's what I am. I'm a fit person. If we take that attitude, what we're going to find is all those things like not eating certain foods or eating the right foods is not going to be a matter of, should I have that pie, or should I have that hamburger, or questions like that. But what it'll become is, I'm a fit person. I want those vegetables. I'm a fit person. I'd love that salad. I'm a fit person. I'd like that smaller portion of meat. I'm a fit person. I want to go to the gym. I'm a fit person. I enjoy the feeling of this repetition. As soon as we make the decision that we are fit and that's what we live in, everything becomes way, way easier. Now, what you do to stay fit is not near as important as doing something that you like to stay fit. Some people like boating, some people like canoeing, some people enjoy water skiing or perhaps snow skiing, or it might be handball or tennis, weightlifting, walking, hiking, reading a good book, stretching, doing aerobic exercises, mountain climbing, gymnastics, yoga, basketball, baseball, any number of ways to stay in shape, stretching, just doing all types of things that make you happy, board diving. It doesn't matter what it is, but what is important is that once you've identified that that's what you are, that you are a fit person, make sure that you set up a routine that is just about every day. It's much easier, for example, to go to the gym 5 days a week than it is to go every other day. You'll find that you'll do it more often, and that when you go there, you'll get into a routine that becomes very easy for you to do because you understand the equipment, you know that at a certain time you go to the gym, and it becomes a habit. And that habit has to be fun. Make sure when you go in the gym that you stay just long enough to get the work done and then get out. I set my time limit once I actually start doing my lifting to 1 hour. Now there are some times when I'll set the limit to 1.5 hours or to a half an hour. Or let's say one day I go in and I feel really sluggish. I might choose, instead of doing several sets, I might choose like just one set with a little bit more weight and rep out and maybe be out of there in 15 minutes. Or I may find that I feel really low on energy and I just might go in there and stretch. And just stretch out and maybe do a few wheel rolls, something just to get my body worked up a little bit. There are some days that I feel that way, but I always make it fun. Identify with what it is in the gym that you really like to do, and then do more of that than you do some of the other things. And those things that you don't like to do as much, but you know you should get them done in a lower quantity. Get them done now and then. Make sure they are handled, but don't get caught up in having to do every single thing that relates to the exercise, unless that's what makes you happy. So we're thankful. And this is all about having fun today. It's not about teaching you how to do anything. It's about sharing a little bit of fun things that have happened in my life and of what I've seen happen that make fitness a lot of fun, and why I'm grateful for fitness. I hope you've picked out what you're grateful for today, and that you're just rejoicing and thinking about what is it that makes you grateful about that and thankful. Whether it's a nice sunrise or a beautiful sunset, or maybe making love to your partner, whatever it is that you're grateful for, whether it's having good food, staying in shape, praising the Lord, having a close walk with the Lord, whatever it is that makes you happy today, think about that and have fun with it and enjoy it today. And I'm going to share a few things that have happened in my life that have really made fitness an important part of my life. It was 1958, and I was in 2nd grade, and I really enjoyed running. I enjoyed playing out in the playground. I always enjoyed chasing people, playing different games that involved running. And I couldn't get enough of it. And one day I came in phys ed during the second half of the year where we were going to have a race in phys ed. We had this gymnasium. It was in Manchester, New Hampshire, in our school. Of course, with snow and everything up there in New Hampshire, you get cold, and so we had an inside gymnasium. It was a small school, but well equipped. And we set up the 2nd grade boys in a row, and we had a race down one end of the gym and back to the other. And we raised and then came back, and then they took the top 5 winners and put them in a heat to see who would be the grand winner. And I was one of the 5 fastest, so they put me in the heat, and boom, the teacher clapped, and we took off running, and we're running all the way down, and I noticed Daniel Fleming is really getting the lead, and I'm starting to chase Daniel Fleming, and pretty soon it's just Daniel Fleming and me, and the rest of the guys are kind of fading behind, and Daniel's really running, and I'm starting to catch him and starting to catch him. We turn around, we hit the wall, turn around, start coming back. And then we're running and running and running. You could just, woo, felt so good. It, whoo, the finish line. I said, I won. And the teacher goes, no, you didn't win. Daniel beat you. And I kind of knew that Daniel could have beaten me, and I thought, well, that's wonderful. Daniel won, and I had a great time coming in second, and I would have had a great time coming in 5th, because it was all about the fun. And from that day on, I knew I was a runner. Well, flash ahead now to 1962, and we're living in Florida. And during the summertime, we had the Orlando Recreation Department put on different programs for the kids at different schools. Well, our particular school had Grand Avenue Recreation. And all of the kids in the neighborhood would go there during the summer to have fun. Would play checkers, would play different sports, would play tetherball, kickball, anything to have fun. We'd have square dancing on Wednesdays. That was always a lot of fun because you'd get on the buses and you'd go and you'd meet the other kids and we'd do the square dancing down at the municipal hall and learn how to do the do-si-do and all these different things. And you got to do little things with the girlies, and that was a lot of fun. Well, towards the end of the summer, they decided to have a track meet for the whole city of Orlando. And the kids showed up. You know, we're 12 years old, 11 years old, 10 years old, some of us almost 13. And they set up these, it made it into a nice track meet, and they had a 50-yard dash. So I entered the 50-yard dash. And I got in there and got in the heat, and Richard Mercer said, yeah, I'll tell you who's going to win. That kid right there, he was pointing to me, because he had known me for many years at that point. And I got up there and I'm thinking, well, I hope I'm as confident as Richard is because I know I'm a runner. And the little gun went off. And I came out of the blocks and I was running and running and running and running. And I could feel the wind just swishing past my ears. And I'm going, whoa, I am flying. And shoom! Sure enough, I won first place by a long shot. And I thought, wow, I'm not only fit, I really am a runner. Well, when I got to high school, I continued running and loved it and made it fun all the time. I did a little pole vaulting. I did some hurdling, even high hurdling, but I really became a good low hurdler and made it to the state. They also chose me to open up the sprint medley, and that day at the state meet, we set a record for the school, for our high school, that stood for 10 years. Well, come 1972, in the late summer, early fall, I'm in the United States Army basic training in Fort Jackson. And in Munich, Germany, the Olympics were going on. And my friend Frank Shorter, whom I had ran with at the University of Florida, won the marathon. I was so happy. It was an up in my life because one thing about Frank Shorter, he knew he was a runner. So, of course, as you get into being fit, you pick a sport or you pick something that gets you excited, whether it's swimming or, weightlifting or bodybuilding or dancing. You'll pick an assortment of things that you enjoy doing. Well, the thing that really caught my attention was weightlifting. And the reason is because for some reason, being extremely small, there were guys that used to pick fights with me because I was always outspoken, always had an opinion, And some of the older guys didn't like that, and they thought I was an easy hit, and so they'd fight me. And I'd usually hold my own, do real well, but got tired of getting in fights, got tired of having to defend myself. And I thought, my cousin Paul is so really fit. He's all buffed out. He's 16 years old. He's 4 years older than me, and he looks like he's could take on anybody. And in fact, he was really, really good at holding his own. And nobody ever picked on Paul. And I thought, you know, as a young 12-year-old kid, that made an impression on me. And my dad got me some weights that next year for Christmas, and I started practicing very ardently and learning how to do the different motions and how to do the sets and so on. And time went on. I never forget, one day I met this guy by the name of Larry Carlson. We had moved, and he was one house down from us, and he had a bigger set of weights, and he used to train outside. And I'd come by and watch him. He says, "Hey, Bobby, you can train with me." So I now had this quite a bit older fella training with me, and I learned a lot from him, and I got really, really strong and started picking up on actual weightlifting as a competitive sport. Even though I had never seen a contest, I really liked the concept and started studying magazines on how to lift. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was getting better and better and stronger, quicker and quicker. And one day, in my senior year of high school, when I was only weighing around 123 pounds, my friend Tony Grappo came up to me and said, "Hey, Fav, they're doing a contest up in Jacksonville. It's the state contest, and I think this form will help you. You could enter it. Maybe you could get into the state contest." And I thought, well, gosh, I'll give it a try. So I filled out the form. Didn't have email in those days, didn't have cell phones. I filled out the form, mailed it in, and it came back that I was accepted in the state contest. So I show up. I don't know what to wear. I had some little tennis shoes on, and I had some little shorts, and a gym short, just a short. You know, these other guys were all decked out in fancy shoes and weightlifting suits. And the contest began. And being in the bantamweight class, it wasn't a real steep class, but I did manage to come in second that day in my first contest, and I was so excited. But what I was the most excited about was after we had done the press, which I believe I pressed 145 that day, and then the snatch, I also snatched 145, and then the clean and jerk. I had never done past 185, and on my second attempt I tried 190 and made it, and then I made 200 pounds. And guess what? I now said, I'm a lifter. Well, just 2 years and 6 months later, something special happened, but I'll save that for the goosh. So after that state meet, I got invited to go to the Teenage Nationals that summer, and everybody got together and sent me off to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I came back winning second in the United States in the Teenage Nationals, and I was really excited about that. I met some great lifters, and it really boosted my experience because these lifters had more knowledge about the form to use and the poundages and which contest to enter, which ones not to. And I also made a decision at that contest that I was never going to take any steroids, and I never did. Most weightlifters did. Almost all of the competitors in the higher contests did. I never did. It just was my personal choice. And part of that was because I met a fellow by the name of Larry Scott. He had been, I believe it was the first Mr. Olympia. And after Larry won the contest, having used extensive steroids, he ended up in the hospital. His body weight had gone from 230 pounds or so down to something like 90 pounds. And I met him in 1968 at an exhibit after he had come out of the hospital and was coming back, and he looked good. And he just told us that day, he said, I'd advise never, ever, ever take a steroid. And it made an impression on me, and so I never did. And I'm glad I learned that from Larry at a very young age, from somebody who had been the best in the world. I want to tell you about something that happened in 1970. Now, by 1970, I had come on the national scene pretty heavy, and I was doing real well. And I decided I was going to go watch the World Championships, which was going to be held in Columbus, Ohio that year. That's right, all the lifters from around the world were going to come together, from Russia, from Hungary, from Belgium, from England, from Australia. All these different lifters were going to come together in the South American countries and so on to lift in the World Championships, including the Russian team. And so when I got to Columbus, Ohio, it just so happens that Jim Benjamin, who was the United States champion in my class, was going to be one of the loaders because his coach was putting on the world meet. And so now Jim turns to me and goes, Bob, glad you're here early. How would you like to be a loader with me for the World Championships? I thought, you mean like load the plates for these World Champion lifters? He did, yeah, you'll be a loader with me. I'm thinking, well, yeah, of course I'd like to. I had loaded at other contests before. I knew the poundages. I had done a good job. And I said, yeah, let's do it, man. Well, the final night of the meet, after all of these contestants had trained and come in and competed, they had the heavyweight class, the super heavyweight class. And there was this lifter from Russia whom I had met earlier in the week by the name of Vasily Alexiev. And Vasily Alexiev was pushing in on 500 pounds. He was getting close to making 500 pounds in the clean and jerk. And of course, I was one of the loaders that night. When it came time for the snatch, I loaded the plates, watched him, was right there within a few feet of him breaking the world record in the snatch. And I thought, this is really great. Well, when it came time for the clean and jerk, they switched loaders, but I was still on stage. And as a little sidebar, a little guy came up to me, quite a bit smaller than me, and said, do you lift weights too? I said, yes, I do. He says, well, I do too. I was a weightlifter. I says, really? I said, what's your name? He says, Chuck Vinci. Chuck Vinci. He was the greatest bantamweight lifter ever up to that point. He had smashed every world record many times over as a lifter. And these were the type of people you were beginning to meet. Well, before the heavyweights went into the clean and jerk, there was a man that came on stage during the break, and he had just arrived. He had come in from London the night before at the Mr. Universe and flown all night to land for the Mr. World contest that was going to be held right after the the heavyweights. And that man came on stage, and it was none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he was looking handsome, and he was looking buffed. And everybody was flocking the stage to see him, and I was looking, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, the greatest bodybuilder in the world, except for Sergio Oliva, whom Arnold was never able to beat up to that point. But there was Arnold in all of his glory, a young man, just now coming into the United States. Joe Weider had brought him over from Austria, and he was now bodybuilding for the United States, and he was going to compete in the Mr. World right after the super heavyweights. But back to the super heavyweights. So Vasily Alexiev is coming out. He's already clearly won the contest. They load 500 pounds on the bar. It's never happened. Vasily comes out, stands there. I'm standing over here. I'm looking at him. I'm thinking, the greatest lifter in the world. He approaches the bar, gets over the bar. Whoom! He's got it locked in on the clean. Comes up. Boom! And he jerks 500 pounds. Mershon Auditorium, University of Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. The place goes nuts. Boom! Seems like the building was going to fall apart. Everybody went crazy. What in the moment? The Russian knew that he was a lifter. So the weightlifting was over and it was time for the Mr. World contest. The greats came out and each one of them did their poses. Totally different than weightlifting. It was a showcase of beautiful architecture of the body, living art. And each bodybuilder had a different way of showing his body, different ways, different muscle developments. It's a beautiful thing to see. It was so lovely to see these different bodies from around the world. And then Sergio Oliva, the great champion Sergio Oliva, came out with a massive back, beautiful pectoral muscles and nice deltoids. Very handsome man, doing all of the poses. Had been unbeat. What a show. Then the great Arnold Schwarzenegger came on, began to pose, and the crowd started to go nuts. He was fantastic with the motions that he went through. Just absolutely fantastic as he went through all of his motions. And then the judges couldn't decide who they were going to give it to. And they asked those two men. All of the rest were out now. It was going to be between Sergio Oliva and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they came out for a pose down. From the front, the side, the back, showing tremendous development. It was just an amazing thing to see. Then they left the stage and they said, we'd like them to come back out again. We can't decide. And they went through it one more time. And you could see the development in Sergio's back. His lower back looked like spinal erectors that were made for a building to hold up a skyscraper. And Arnold's chest was massive and his beautiful biceps peeked out. And Sergio Oliva's biceps big and huge and bulky and really strong looking. And we're thinking, how do you make a decision like that? How do you make a decision like that? And then it was announced that the Mr. World would be Arnold Schwarzenegger, 1970. Early on, I learned in weightlifting that a big part of the sport is not just what it does for you, but passing on what you know to other people. So as other kids in the neighborhood and eventually in high school and in college would come around, I would offer to teach them weightlifting. And when I got to the University of Florida, I put an ad in the Florida Alligator inviting anybody to come for a tryout and for a workout and to try out for the weightlifting team. And that Saturday following, quite a few guys showed up in the downstairs in the gym. And I began to tell them that I'd like to teach them how to lift. And some of them really wanted to learn. So the following Saturday, I had them all back and I began to teach them. And I noticed that the guys who were doing the bigger lifts, unfortunately, were not willing to learn as quickly as the guys that had not yet been developed. And I think it was partially because the guys that were stronger felt they already had success. But if you fast forward now, 4 years later, and we're going to the national championships, everybody on the team were those people who had been the weaker lifters at first, the ones who were willing to start off with the broomstick and then move up gradually and learn that form and have fun with the form and learn how to do the lift perfectly. And when we got to the nationals, they had really nice form. And so the people who ended up placing in the regional and national meets were the lifters that did not have the skills in the early days when I first arrived, but were willing to become coachable. So I urge anybody who's in any sport to consider two things. Number one, share what you know with people who know less. And if you know less, be willing to learn more. Because the only way I was able to make it to the level that I was able to make it to, and fortunately I've been able to place in national contests in 3 different weight sports. I won the junior nationals in Olympic lifting. I set a national record in the deadlift in powerlifting. And then as a senior, years later, I represented the United States in the Olympia, going to Greece and then eventually doing 2 more Olympias and winning the bronze medal in the Natural Olympia for the whole world. So by coaching other people and learning from other people, I was able to make it to the top and help other people make it to the top. We always had fun. Never forget, that's the most important thing, is make it fun, do it regular, make it part of your life, make it part of your identity. Become fit. Decide today whether it's going to be mental fitness, emotional fitness, physical fitness. Determine, even if you have poor health at the present time, declare yourself fit. Declare yourself a fit person. I am a fit person. That's what I am. And that identity is going to take you all the way across the finish line. Well, here's a couple do's and don'ts. Number 1, don't let fitness become your God. God is God. Allow your fitness to be something that allows you to be a more complete human being, to be able to give more to people, to be able to honor God more completely, to be fit, to be able to be agile, to be able to be strong, to be able to get the work done, to be able to have the endurance to go through the day, to be able to be a pleasant person. Keep it within the structure of who you are as a human being that's made in the image and likeness of God. The next thing is to be adaptable in terms of listening to your body. Learn to know what your body wants and what it needs. If it needs more fun, give it more fun. If it needs more flexibility, do things that are fun and flexible. If it needs more strength, muscular strength, learn to enjoy the resistance. Learn to do just enough to keep you really happy doing it. If you get to the point where it becomes drudgery, back off on that. Find something else that you can use to replace that particular attitude to where you feel good. And let me share this with you. One thing that really works for me. When I first get up, after I've put on my coffee, I come back to the bed, I drink some water, I take my fiber for the day, and I drink a good amount of water, and then I lie on the bed, and I start to move my body. I move my shoulders, get loosened up, work the hips, get loosened up, work, twist into the body, get the body woken up, get the water in the body, start moving while you're lying down. And then bring your feet back. I like to bring my feet back and move them out to where I'm eventually rolling back on my back and then throwing my legs a little higher in the air, going back, throwing my legs higher in the air to where by the time I've got to 20 reps, my feet are going way up in the air. I'm all the way up on my shoulders, going to the right, going to the left, and on the 20th rep, I'll pop out of bed, come down, head over, make sure I've got the house opened up, grab my coffee, sit down, start doing my quiet time. set my organization up for the day, get my Bible out, begin reading my daily scripture, talking to the Lord. You may want to adapt something like that. It certainly works for me. It was now December of 1970. I had just gotten back from San Francisco, where I had trained with the weightlifters all summer long. Some of the best in the country. Alex's Sports Palace, 24th and Mission. What a great time I had. Earlier that year, in spring, I had met Janis Joplin. She was from San Francisco. And as I went to her concerts at the University of Florida and stood there watching her and going to both of her shows, and she and I talking earlier in the afternoon, she said, come on out to San Francisco and see me. So I did, to do my lifting. And she was out in Canada touring on the Festival Express, doing a tour from Toronto and eventually going over to Winnipeg, where she finished up her concerts. Well, it was a great time. And then it was now back to work at the University of Florida, and now the first contest of the year up in Jacksonville, Florida, the Tournament of Champions. So I'm starting to feel pretty good about my lifting. It's going to be one of the best years of my life. I'm thinking to myself, wow, I get a chance to lift really good today because I'm really feeling strong. Show up in Jacksonville, and Otto was putting on the contest, the promoter and the organizer. And he says, Bob, we're so happy to have you here. You're looking good. I'm so happy that you're here because you're always respectful. You're one of those guys that never cusses, never uses the F word, never says the words that I hate hearing. I'm going, Otto, thank you. I would step on the scale for the weight. I made weight, lightweight class. Now the contest begins. I come out for my press. I press 235. Best I had done in my life up to that point. Went into the snatch. I made 200. Not bad for a starting of the season. So I'm going in to the third lift with the best subtotal I had ever had. And I opened up with 275 on the clean and jerk, and then went to 290 in the clean and jerk, and made it. And I said, Otto, I'm going to try 300. And he goes, really? I said, yeah. 300 on the bar. So they put 300 pounds on the bar. Quite a few of my friends from high school were in the audience. A lot of people from the different universities that showed up. I was feeling good. I was going to try my first 300-pound clean and jerk. I went out, cleaned it, got stiff, and jerked it over my head. It was a successful lift. I couldn't believe it. 300 pounds. I brought it down. I went nuts. I was happy. Everybody was standing up and clapping, and I go, oh, and I let out the F-bomb. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I look over at Otto and I go, Otto, I'm sorry. He goes, oh, Bob, you made it. And he gives me a big hug. You did 300. And I thought to myself, I'm a lifter.